Welcome to the sleepy hours, a quiet space where dreams begin and worries fade.
In the space between sleeping and waking, where impossible things become real, two souls have been reaching for each other across the darkness. What if your dreams were not just yours alone? What if, somewhere in the vast ocean of sleep, another soul was swimming toward the same shore of consciousness? In the space between waking and sleeping, where logic dissolves like sugar in rain, two hearts have been calling to each other across the void of night. She has always felt it, a presence in her dreams, familiar yet unknown, a voice that speaks without words, a touch that leaves no trace upon waking, yet somehow changes everything. He has felt it too, this strange magnetism that pulls him deeper into sleep, seeking something he cannot name but knows he desperately needs. They meet in landscapes that exist nowhere on any map. Cities made of starlight stretch endlessly before them, their streets paved with moonbeams, and their buildings crafted from crystallized laughter. Forests, where the trees sing lullabies in ancient languages, welcome them with branches that glow like gentle lanterns. Oceans that taste of childhood memories lap at shores made of crushed pearls and forgotten wishes. Night after night, they find each other in this realm where souls speak more clearly than bodies ever could. In the library of dreams, they read stories written in languages that exist only in the heart. In the garden of sleeping thoughts, they walk hand in hand through groves where every flower blooms with a different memory. In the cathedral of shared consciousness, they dance to music that plays only when two hearts beat in perfect synchrony. But dreams, no matter how vivid, must end, and in the cruel light of morning, they are left with only fragments. A laugh that echoes in empty rooms long after the dream has faded. The phantom warmth of a hand they have never held, lingering like a ghost against their palm. The ache of a love that feels impossibly real yet impossibly distant. A longing that follows them through their waking hours like a shadow cast by invisible light. What happens when the universe decides that some connections are too powerful to remain confined to sleep? What happens when the dream world begins to bleed into reality, leaving breadcrumbs of magic in the waking world? When the boundary between sleeping and waking becomes as thin as morning mist, and the love that was born in dreams begins to take root in the soil of everyday life. Tonight, we will begin the story of two souls who loved each other in dreams before they ever knew each other's names. We will follow them as they navigate the mysterious territory between sleep and consciousness, between the possible and the impossible, between the love that exists in dreams and the love that must be brave enough to exist in the light of day. Let your breath find its natural rhythm now, like waves finding their eternal dance with the shore. Breathe in slowly, feeling the air fill your lungs like a gentle promise of peace and rest. And breathe out, releasing the day's tensions like autumn leaves falling softly to the ground. Each exhale carrying away the weight of hours that no longer serve you. Feel your body beginning to settle, as if you are sinking into the most comfortable cloud that has ever existed. Your shoulders, which have carried so much today, can finally drop and rest in this sacred space of stillness. Your jaw, which has held so many words throughout the busy hours, can soften and release, letting go of all the conversations and concerns that have filled your mind. Your hands, which have worked so hard and held so much, can simply be still now, resting like sleeping birds upon the soft landscape of your body. With each breath, you are moving closer to that magical threshold between waking and dreaming, that sacred space where anything is possible, where love knows no boundaries of time or distance, and where two souls can find each other across impossible expanses of consciousness. This is the place where the rules of the everyday world dissolve like morning mist, where the heart speaks in languages older than words, and where the deepest truths reveal themselves in whispers and images that dance just beyond the reach of logical thought. Let your mind begin to wander now, like a feather caught on a gentle breeze that knows exactly where it needs to go. You are safe here, completely protected and held by invisible arms of comfort and peace. Nothing can harm you. In this space, nothing can disturb the perfect tranquility that surrounds you like a cocoon of starlight. You are surrounded by invisible guardians of serenity, wrapped in the softest blanket of calm that has ever been woven from moonbeams and gentle dreams. Feel yourself drifting deeper now, like a leaf floating on the surface of a tranquil stream that carries you toward shores of wonder and mystery. Your body grows heavier with each breath, anchored to comfort and safety, settling into the embrace of complete relaxation, while your spirit grows lighter, ready to soar into the realm where dreams are born and where love stories unfold in languages that only sleeping hearts can understand. The sounds of the waking world are fading now, becoming distant and unimportant, like echoes from a place you visited long ago but no longer need to remember. There is only this moment, this breath, this gentle descent into the peaceful darkness where all possibilities wait with infinite patience. You are exactly where you need to be. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, no other place that calls for your attention or concern. Just breathe and drift and trust in the magic that awaits in the tender space between consciousness and sleep, where two hearts have been calling to each other across the vast ocean of dreams. Maya lived in a small apartment above a used bookstore, where the scent of old pages and forgotten stories drifted up through the floorboards, like incense burned in honor of all the dreams that had ever been written down. The wooden floors creaked, gentle lullabies beneath her feet, and the walls seemed to hum with the whispered secrets of thousands of tales that lived in the shop below. Every morning, she would wake with the strange feeling that she had been somewhere important in her sleep, somewhere that mattered more than the waking world ever could, a place where her soul felt more at home than it did in her own bed. Days were quiet and predictable, painted in soft watercolors of routine and gentle purpose. She would begin each morning by brewing coffee that steamed like morning mist rising from a hidden lake, the rich aroma mixing with the book-scented air to create a perfume that spoke of comfort and solitude. Then she would make her way to the local flower shop where she worked, a small sanctuary filled with blooms that seemed to understand her in ways that people rarely did. Her hands moved with intuitive grace as she arranged bouquets, creating symphonies of color and fragrance that told stories without words. Walking home through tree-lined streets as the sun painted everything golden, Maya would often pause too, touch the bark of her favorite oak tree, feeling somehow that it was a messenger between her waking and sleeping worlds. The evening light would filter through leaves like liquid amber, and she would imagine that somewhere in some other version of reality, someone else was watching the same sunset and feeling the same inexplicable longing that filled her chest. Like a song she couldn't quite remember, but her nights were adventures that defied every law of physics and probability. She had always been a vivid dreamer, but lately her dreams felt different, more real than real, more substantial than the solid world of daylight and responsibilities, more populated, as if the empty spaces in her sleeping mind had been filled with a presence that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. There was someone there, constant and comforting, like a favorite song playing just at the edge of hearing. Someone who felt like home before she had ever seen his face, like a memory from a life she might have lived in another time, another place, another realm of possibility. His presence wrapped around her dreams like a warm blanket, and she found herself looking forward to sleep with an anticipation that bordered on desperate need. Maya would wake each morning with fragments of conversations she couldn't quite remember, pieces of dialogue that hung in her mind like half-recalled poetry, the echo of laughter that made her heart race with recognition and longing would follow her through her morning routine, and she would catch herself smiling at memories that felt more real than her reflection in the mirror. There was always the persistent feeling that she was supposed to be looking for something or someone, a treasure hunt with clues written in a language only her sleeping heart could read. She always wondered what lay beyond the veil of sleep, in that place where her dreams felt more real than reality itself, where love existed without the complications of names and faces and the messy business of waking life. One evening, as Maya was closing the flower shop in the gentle amber light of sunset, she noticed something unusual that made her heart skip like a stone across still water. A customer had left behind a book, a small leather-bound journal with blank pages that seemed to glow with their own inner light. The leather was worn smooth by countless hands, and it smelled of vanilla and old roses, a scent that reminded her of places she had never been but somehow knew intimately. When she opened the journal, expecting to find nothing but empty pages, waiting for someone's thoughts and dreams, she discovered a single sentence written in handwriting she didn't recognize, yet somehow knew by heart. The ink was deep blue, the color of midnight skies, and the words seemed to shimmer slightly as she read them. I dreamed of a girl who arranges flowers like she's composing symphonies. Her breath caught in her throat, and the journal trembled in her hands like a living thing. In her dream the night before, she had been standing in a vast garden that stretched beyond the horizon, filled with flowers of every color and variety that had ever existed or ever could exist. She had been carefully arranging wildflowers in bouquets that sang when she touched them, creating harmonies that made the very air dance with music. And somewhere in the shadows, at the edge of the garden, someone had been watching her with eyes full of wonder and recognition. Someone who made her feel seen and understood in a way that transcended words or explanations. The memory of that dream came flooding back now with startling clarity, every detail as vivid as if it were happening again. She could smell the honey-sweet fragrance of the dream flowers, feel the silk-soft petals beneath her fingers, hear the gentle melody that had risen from each arrangement, like invisible birds taking flight, and she could feel the presence of the watcher, warm and familiar and infinitely precious. As Maya prepared for sleep in her small apartment above the bookstore, she made a decision that felt both terrifying and inevitable. Instead of simply letting sleep take her wherever it would, carried along by the random currents of unconscious thought, she would try to remember. She would try to stay conscious enough to truly see this person who seemed to know her so well, who watched her create beauty in dreams and understood the language of her heart without needing translation. She placed the mysterious journal on her nightstand, where the moonlight streaming through her window made the leather cover gleam like water, and closed her eyes with a sense of anticipation that felt like standing at the edge of a great adventure, ready to dive into waters that might be deeper than she had ever imagined. In her dream that night, Maya found herself standing at the entrance of a moonlit library, unlike any that existed in the waking world. The building stretched impossibly high, its shelves reaching toward a ceiling that seemed to dissolve into star-filled darkness. Books floated gently through the air like luminous birds, their pages whispering secrets as they passed, creating a symphony of rustling paper and half-heard stories that filled the vast space with magic. The air itself seemed alive with knowledge and possibility, shimmering with golden dust that sparkled when the floating books disturbed it with their gentle passage. Lanterns hung suspended without chains or cords, casting pools of warm amber light that moved and swayed as if breathing. The floor beneath her feet was made of polished wood that reflected the dancing lights above, creating the illusion that she was walking through a galaxy of captured stars. As she moved deeper into this impossible sanctuary of dreams, Maya became aware of a presence that made her heart sing with recognition. There, reading by a tall window where starlight pooled like liquid silver on the wooden floor, sat a young man with kind eyes and gentle hands. His dark hair caught the ethereal light, and when he looked up from his book, his smile was like sunrise after the longest winter night, warming something deep inside her that had been cold for longer than she could remember. The book in his hands was bound in midnight blue leather, and as she watched, golden words appeared and disappeared on its pages like thoughts made visible. Around him, the air shimmered with the same magic that filled the entire library, but somehow more concentrated, as if his very presence intensified the dream's power to create wonder. He looked up as she approached, and his smile carried with it the weight of 1,000 shared dreams and the promise of 1,000 more. "You're trying to stay awake in the dream," he said, his voice warm with amusement and something deeper, something that sounded like recognition mixed with relief and joy. The sound of his voice sent ripples through the dream reality, causing nearby books to flutter their pages like applauding hands. "How did you know?" Maya asked, settling into the chair across from him as naturally as if they had done this ritual 1,000 times before, as if this impossible library was their regular meeting place and she was simply arriving for another evening of shared wonder. The chair molded itself perfectly to her body, upholstered in fabric that felt like captured moonbeams and smelled faintly of jasmine and old parchment. "Because I'm doing the same thing," he said, closing his book and giving her his complete attention. "I'm trying to remember you when I wake up. I'm trying to figure out if you're real, or if you're the most beautiful dream my sleeping mind has ever created." His eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire universes, and Maya felt herself falling into them like Alice tumbling down a rabbit hole made of starlight and hope dot around them. The library shifted and shimmered in response to their conversation, books rearranging themselves on shelves that bloomed with flowers identical to the ones Maya arranged each day in the waking world. Roses and lilies and daffodils grew from the wooden shelves like living bookmarks, their petals glowing with soft, inner light. The dream logic was perfect and strange, like a poem written in a language the heart understood but the mind couldn't quite translate. Beautiful and mysterious and exactly right in ways that defied explanation. "I'm Sam," he said, and the name settled into her heart like it had always belonged there, like a key finding its perfect lock after years of searching through empty keyholes. The sound of his name seemed to resonate through the library, causing the floating books to spiral in graceful patterns above their heads, their pages rustling with what sounded almost like gentle applause. "And you're Maya," he continued, "though I don't know how I know that. It's as if your name has been written in my dreams long before I ever heard it spoken aloud." His voice carried the weight of certainty mixed with wonder, like someone discovering a truth they had always known but never been able to articulate. "You know, because we've been meeting here for months," Maya realized, the understanding blooming in her mind like morning flowers opening to greet the sun. The knowledge came not as a sudden revelation, but as a gentle awakening, like remembering something precious that had been temporarily misplaced. We just never remembered before. We were like sleepwalkers in our own dreams, moving through this magic without truly seeing it. They talked through the dream night about everything and nothing, their conversation flowing like a river that had found its natural course after being dammed for too long. He told her about his work as a music teacher, how he spent his days helping children discover the joy of melody and rhythm, though he confessed that lately his waking hours felt flat and colorless compared to the richness of his sleeping life. She spoke of her love of creating beauty with flowers, how each arrangement felt like a prayer or a poem made tangible, and how she too had begun to feel like she was living only half a life in the daylight world. The library around them grew cozier as they spoke, the impossible architecture shifting to accommodate their growing intimacy. The soaring shelves seemed to lean inward slightly, creating a more intimate space, while the floating books settled into gentle orbits around their table like curious butterflies drawn to the warmth of their connection. The air filled with scents that spoke of comfort and belonging, the warm fragrance of cinnamon and vanilla, the clean smell of old paper and leather bindings, like a grandmother's kitchen merged with a scholar's study, a place where wisdom and love lived in perfect harmony. Sam reached across the table and took her hand, and the touch sent ripples through the dream like a stone dropped into still water. Where their skin met, tiny sparks of golden light danced, and Maya felt a jolt of recognition so profound it seemed to echo through every cell of her being. "What if we could find each other when we're awake?" he whispered, his voice barely audible, above the gentle symphony of rustling pages and sighing wind that filled the magical library. But even as the words left his lips, Maya felt the familiar tug of approaching dawn, that inexorable pull that dragged sleepers back to the world of alarm clocks and responsibilities. The dream began to fade around the edges, like watercolor paint bleeding into white paper, and the books started to flutter more urgently, as if they too were aware that their time was running short. "Wait," she called out, reaching for him as the library began to dissolve around her, the golden light dimming and the flowers on the shelves beginning to lose their ethereal glow. But the magical sanctuary was already becoming transparent, already sliding back into the realm of memory and longing. She woke with tears on her cheeks and his name on her lips, and for the first time in months of mysterious dreams, she remembered everything, every word they had spoken, every glance they had shared, every moment of connection that had bloomed between them in that impossible library of dreams. The memory was crystal clear and achingly beautiful, more vivid than many of her waking experiences, and she held it close to her heart like a precious secret, and yet something still felt unfinished, like a symphony that had been interrupted just before the final, triumphant chord. The next night, Maya and Sam found themselves in a place that defied every attempt at description, a realm that existed beyond the boundaries of physics or possibility. They stood together in a floating garden, suspended between earth and stars, where the very air shimmered with colors that had no names, and the ground beneath their feet was made of compressed starlight that felt solid yet luminous. Above them, galaxies wheeled in slow, majestic spirals, their light casting everything in hues of silver and gold and deep, cosmic purple. The garden itself was a living symphony of impossible beauty. Musical flowers chimed softly in a breeze that tasted of hope and longing, each bloom producing notes that harmonized with its neighbors to create melodies that seemed to come from the very heart of the universe. Trees grew in spirals toward the star-filled sky, their branches heavy with fruit made of crystallized emotion, glowing orbs that pulsed gently with feelings too complex and beautiful for waking minds to comprehend. They could feel each other's emotions here with startling clarity, as if the barriers between their hearts had dissolved completely. Maya felt the way Sam's pulse quickened when she smiled, the warmth that spread through his chest like honey when she laughed. Sam experienced the music that seemed to play in Maya's soul when she moved through the garden, the way her spirit sang with joy when he played melodies on flowers that grew like piano keys from the floating soil, their petals responding to his touch with cascades of light and sound. "I've been looking for you in the waking world," Sam confessed, as they walked through groves of trees that bore fruit made of pure light, spheres of radiance that cast no shadows but somehow illuminated everything around them with gentle, healing warmth. His voice carried the weight of months of searching, of hope mixed with growing desperation. "I teach at Jefferson Elementary, and I've been visiting every flower shop in the city, hoping to catch a glimpse of someone who moves the way you move, who creates beauty the way you do. And I've been listening for your music everywhere," Maya replied, her words floating on the celestial breeze like visible things, shimmering with truth and vulnerability. On street corners where musicians play for spare change, in coffee shops where pianists fill the evening air with gentle melodies, in concert halls and subway stations, hoping to hear something that sounds like the songs you play in my dreams. Something that makes my heart recognize what it's been missing. But as they explored this impossible garden together, walking paths made of woven moonbeams between flower beds that sang lullabies in harmony, they discovered something that cast a shadow over their joy. With each step, they took deeper into the dream realm. Each moment they spent in this perfect world of shared consciousness and limitless possibility, the waking world seemed to grow more distant, more gray and lifeless by comparison. The colors of ordinary reality appeared washed out when measured against the vivid hues of their dream garden, and the simple pleasures of daylight existence felt hollow compared to the profound connection they shared in sleep as they paused beside a fountain that flowed upward instead of down, its waters transformed into liquid starlight that danced in impossible patterns before dissolving into sparkling mist. A silver doe appeared before them on the pathway. The creature was ethereal, an ancient, its coat shimmering like moonlight on water, its eyes holding depths of wisdom that seemed older than time itself. It regarded them with a gaze that felt both gentle and searching, as if it could see into the very core of their beings. The doe spoke without words, its message arriving directly in their hearts, like a question written in light across the landscape of their shared consciousness. What are you willing to sacrifice to be together? What are you willing to risk for love that transcends the boundaries between sleeping and waking? How much of yourselves are you prepared to give up to bridge the gap between dreams and reality? Maya and Sam looked at each other across the shimmering space between dream and reality, their eyes meeting in a moment of perfect understanding that seemed to stop time itself. The floating garden around them held its breath, the musical flowers falling silent, the upward flowing fountain pausing mid-cascade, as if the entire realm of dreams was waiting for their answer. In that crystalline moment of silence, they both understood the choice that lay before them with startling clarity. They could choose to remain in this perfect dream world, where love was as easy as breathing and magic flowed through every moment like water through cupped hands. Here, they would never know the awkwardness of first meetings, the stumbling attempts at conversation between strangers, the thousand small fears and insecurities that plagued connections in the waking world. In dreams, they were already perfect, for each other, already complete, already home, or they could choose the harder path, the one that led through uncertainty and vulnerability toward something that might be even more precious because of its fragility. They could choose to find each other in the realm of alarm clocks and coffee shops, of nervous laughter and fumbling first kisses, of love that had to be built day by day with patience and courage rather than simply discovered in the magical landscape of sleep. "I want to find you," Maya said, her voice steady with newfound determination that seemed to make the very air around them pulse with golden light. "Not just here, in this perfect place where everything is easy and beautiful, but there, in the real world, with all its complications and imperfections and messy, wonderful humanity." Her words carried the weight of absolute certainty, the kind of truth that could move mountains or bridge the gap between sleeping and waking. Sam nodded, taking her hands as flowers bloomed spontaneously around their feet, carpeting the ground, with petals that glowed like tiny stars. "Even if it means these dreams might end?" he asked, his voice gentle but serious, wanting to be certain they both understood what they were choosing. "Even if finding each other in reality means losing this perfect place where we can be together without fear or doubt, or the thousand small obstacles that make love complicated in the waking world." Especially then, Maya replied, and as she spoke the words, she felt something shift inside her, like a bridge building itself between her dreaming and waking selves. It was a sensation of wholeness she hadn't known she was missing, as if pieces of her soul that had been scattered across the realm of sleep were finally coming together in one unified purpose. Because real love isn't about finding perfection. It's about choosing to build something beautiful together, even when it's difficult, even when it requires us to be brave. The silver doe lifted its elegant head and bowed in approval, its ancient eyes sparkling with what looked almost like pride. When it spoke again, its wordless message was filled with warmth and blessing, like a grandmother's benediction given to beloved grandchildren embarking on a great adventure. Tomorrow, the message whispered directly into their hearts, at the place where music meets flowers, when the sun is highest in the sky and the boundary between dreams and waking is thinnest. Trust in what you have built here, and it will guide you to each other in the world of daylight and possibility. As the doe's words settled into their souls, like seeds planted in fertile ground, Maya felt the dream beginning to shift around them, not fading this time, but transforming, preparing to release them back to their separate sleeping bodies with a gift more precious than all the magic they had shared. They had chosen courage over comfort, growth over safety, and the universe itself seemed to be rearranging itself to honor that choice. And then, just as she thought their time together was ending, just as she prepared to wake with purpose instead of longing, something extraordinary began to happen that neither of them had expected. As Maya and Sam prepared to wake from what might be their last shared dream, the floating garden began to rain flower petals that transformed into musical notes before touching the ground. Each petal became a shimmering symbol of sound, creating a cascade of visible music that told the story of their connection in languages older than words. The notes sang pieces of their journey together, harmonizing melodies that carried the memory of their first meeting in the library of dreams, their conversations in moonlit cafes that existed only in sleep, their dance in ballrooms made of clouds, where they had waltzed to music played by orchestras of stars. But then something extraordinary began to unfold, something that made the very fabric of dream and reality shimmer like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The boundary between their sleeping and waking worlds began to blur and blend, like watercolors bleeding into each other on wet paper, creating new hues that had never existed before. The solid walls that separated dream from reality became transparent, then permeable, then began to dissolve entirely through this shimmering veil between worlds. Maya saw Sam's apartment as clearly as if she were standing in it. She could see his small living space filled with instruments and plants, a guitar leaning against a window where morning glory vines climbed toward the light, sheet music scattered across a table next to a coffee cup that still steamed with warmth, books about music theory shared shelf space with small potted flowers, and she realized he had been unconsciously surrounding himself with the things that appeared in their shared dreams. At the same time, Sam saw Maya's room above the bookstore with startling clarity, taking in every detail as if he had visited it 100 times before. Her space was filled with pressed flowers and handwritten poems, journals filled with sketches of arrangements she had created, and books of poetry lying open as if she had been searching for words to describe feelings too complex for ordinary language. Dried lavender hung from the ceiling beams, and the windowsill was crowded with small glass bottles that caught and reflected the light like captured rainbows. A bridge of pure light appeared between their two worlds, spanning the distance between their separate sleeping forms, like a pathway made of crystallized starlight and concentrated hope. The bridge pulsed gently with its own inner radiance, and walking across it were all the versions of themselves they had ever been in dreams. Maya, the brave explorer who had navigated landscapes made of music and memory. Sam, the gentle healer who had taught flowers to sing lullabies. Maya, the wise teacher who had spoken in languages of color and fragrance. Sam, the fearless adventurer who had climbed mountains made of crystallized emotion. Each of their dream selves carried gifts as they walked toward their waking counterparts, offerings of memory and magic that would help them recognize each other when they finally met in the daylight world. The gifts glowed softly in their hands, some appearing as small tokens of light, others as wisps of music made visible, all of them containing the essence of what they had built together in the realm of sleep. The procession of their dream selves moved with ceremonial grace across the bridge of light, and as they walked, the boundaries between all their different versions began to soften and merge. The courageous Maya began to blend with the gentle Maya. The musical Sam harmonized with the adventurous Sam, until each of them became whole in a way they had never been before, integrating all the aspects of themselves they had discovered in dreams. As the magical bridge of light began to fade like morning mist touched by the first rays of sun, Maya and Sam each received a final gift from their dreaming selves, tokens that would serve as anchors between their two worlds and guides for their hearts when they needed to trust in what seemed impossible. The gifts materialized in their hands with a warmth that felt like coming home, like finding something precious that had been lost for a very long time. For Maya, the gift was a perfect flower, unlike any that existed in the waking world, its petals shifting through every color she had ever seen in dreams, and some that had no names in any earthly language. The flower pulsed gently with its own inner light, and she knew instinctively that it would never wilt, never fade, never lose the magic that had created it in the space between sleeping and waking. It was a rose that contained the essence of every garden they had walked through together, a bloom that held the memory of music made visible and love made tangible. Sam's gift was a melody that settled into his mind like a familiar song he had always known but never heard before. The music was both complex and simple, profound and playful, carrying within its notes the laughter they had shared, the conversations that had bridged their separate souls, the moments of perfect understanding that had made them whole. He knew that this melody would never fade from his memory, would never lose its power to fill his heart with recognition and hope. It was a song that contained the essence of every dream they had shared, a composition written in the language of the heart. These talismans would help them recognize each other when they finally met in the waking world, serving as compass points that would guide them to each other through the maze of ordinary life. The flower would remind Maya of the beauty they had created together, while the melody would remind Sam of the harmony they had discovered in each other's company. "I'll know you," Maya whispered, as the dream began its final transformation, the floating garden starting to dissolve around them like sugar in warm rain. Her voice carried absolute certainty, the kind of faith that could move mountains or bridge the gap between worlds. No matter how different you look in daylight, no matter how nervous we might be when we're standing face to face with our hearts in our throats, I'll know your soul, and I'll know yours, Sam replied, his voice growing distant as the pull of dawn grew stronger. But his words remained clear and true as a bell ringing across still water. In your laugh, in the way you move through the world, in the kindness that lives in your eyes like sunlight through leaves, I'll know you because you're already written in my heart. As they separated, drifting back toward their individual sleeping, bodies like leaves carried on different currents of the same gentle stream, both felt a profound shift taking place within them. The magic they had shared in dreams wasn't disappearing or fading into memory like most dreams do with the arrival of morning light. Instead, it was settling into their hearts, becoming part of who they were, transforming from something they had experienced into something they had become. They had journeyed far into the realm of dreams, exploring landscapes that existed nowhere on any earthly map. But now they understood that all they needed to find each other was already inside them, woven into the very fabric of their beings like golden thread through silk. The adventure was not ending but beginning, shifting from the realm of sleep into the bright, complicated, beautiful world of waking life. She had gone far into the land of dreams, but all she needed was already inside her, waiting to bloom in. The morning light like a flower that had been growing in secret, preparing for its moment to open and reveal its beauty to the world. And so Maya woke that final morning with a heart full of certainty instead of the familiar ache of longing, with clear purpose instead of the endless searching that had colored her days for so many months. The flower from her dream lay on her nightstand, as real and perfect and impossible as love itself, its petals catching the morning light and reflecting it back in colors that seemed to sing. She touched it gently, and it pulsed with warmth beneath her fingertips, a reminder that some magic is too powerful to be contained by the boundaries between sleeping and waking. She dressed carefully that morning, not with vanity, but with reverence, understanding that this day would divide her life into before and after, that she was preparing for a moment that would change everything. The flower went into her hair, nestled behind her ear where it glowed softly against her skin, and she could feel its magic working through her, filling her with a confidence that felt like coming home to herself at noon when the sun was highest. In the sky and shadows were small pools of coolness beneath the trees. Maya walked to the park where the flower festival was being held. The air was alive with music and laughter, with the scent of hundreds of blooms and the sound of children playing. Musicians had set up their instruments among the flower vendors, creating a tapestry of sound and color that made the entire park feel like a living celebration of beauty and joy. She moved through the crowd with purpose, her heart beating steadily, but not frantically, her mind clear and focused on the task at hand. She was looking for the place where music met flowers, where two worlds that had always belonged together finally came into perfect alignment. The flower in her hair grew warmer as she walked, guiding her like a compass toward her destination. And there, beside a fountain filled with floating petals that danced on the water like tiny boats, carrying wishes, sat a young man tuning his guitar, His dark hair caught the afternoon sunlight, and his hands moved over the strings with the same gentle precision she had admired in her dreams. He was surrounded by the music he created and the flowers that bloomed around the fountain's edge, exactly as the silver doe had promised. At the place where music meets flowers, their eyes met across the crowd, and time seemed to slow and sweeten like honey poured from a jar held by careful hands. They smiled at each other with the same smile they had shared in 1,000 dreams, but now it was real and warm and perfectly imperfect in the golden afternoon light. The recognition was instant and complete, not just of faces, but of souls. Not just of appearances, but of the deep, essential truth of who they were to each other. Maya felt the flower in her hair pulse with joy, and Sam heard the melody from his dreams begin to play in his heart. And they both knew, without question, that their journey through the realm of sleep had led them exactly where they were meant to be. You are safe in your own dreams now, dear listener, held by the same magic that brought Maya and Sam together across impossible distances and improbable circumstances. Let yourself drift on waves of starlight, floating on oceans of peace and possibility. You are light, you are love, you are exactly where you need to be in this moment, surrounded by the gentle protection of sleep and the promise that all things are possible in the realm of dreams. The story continues in your own heart now, where love stories are always being written in languages of hope and wonder, where two souls can always find each other across any distance, any obstacle, any boundary between worlds. You are safe, you are cherished, you are exactly where you belong. Sam's fingers stilled on the guitar strings as Maya approached, the melody he had been playing dissolving into the warm afternoon air like morning mist touched by sunlight. The song that had been guiding his heart for so many months seemed to complete itself in her presence, finding its final, perfect chord in the moment their eyes truly met in the waking world. I know that melody, Maya said softly, settling beside him on the fountain's edge, as naturally as if they had done this 100 times before. Her voice carried the same gentle warmth he remembered from their dreams, but now it was real and present, vibrating through the air between them like a bridge made of sound. You've been playing it in my dreams, and you've been arranging flowers that sing, Sam replied, his smile lighting up his entire face as he gestured toward the magical bloom nestled in her hair. Even in the bright daylight, surrounded by the ordinary world of picnics and families and street musicians, the flower from her dreams glowed with its own inner radiance, a small miracle that proved their journey together had been more than just beautiful illusion. They talked for hours beside that fountain, sharing stories of their waking lives that felt like missing pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Maya learned that Sam had indeed been visiting flower shops across the city, drawn by an inexplicable need to find someone who moved through beauty the way she did. Sam discovered that Maya had been lingering outside schools when classes ended, hoping to catch the sound of music lessons drifting through open windows, searching for melodies that would make her heart remember what it had been missing. As the afternoon faded into evening and the flower festival began to wind down around them, lanterns were lit throughout the park, casting everything in warm golden light that made the entire world feel like it was glowing from within. Maya and Sam found themselves walking along paths they had never seen before, but that felt familiar, as if they were retracing steps they had taken together in dreams. "What happens now?" Maya asked, as they paused beneath a tree whose branches seemed to hum with gentle music, its leaves rustling in harmonies that sounded almost like lullabies. "Now that we've found each other, now that dreams have become reality, what becomes of all those magical places we visited together?" Sam took her hand, and just as it had in dreams, the touch sent ripples of warmth and recognition through both of them. "I think," he said thoughtfully, "that the magic doesn't disappear. I think it just changes form. Instead of meeting in floating gardens and impossible libraries, we'll create magic in coffee shops and bookstores, in the flower arrangements you make and the songs I teach my students. We'll build a life together that's just as beautiful as our dreams, but more real, more solid, more lasting." As the evening deepened around them, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Maya felt a profound sense of completion settling over her like a blanket made of starlight and contentment. The frantic searching that had driven her for so many months was finally over, replaced by a deep, abiding peace that felt like coming home after a very long journey. They walked together through the lantern-lit park, past families packing up, picnic blankets and musicians closing their instrument cases, past the flower vendors who were carefully packing away their remaining blooms. The magic of the day was winding down, but the magic between them felt like it was just beginning, like a story that had found its perfect opening chapter. And as they walked, Maya realized that she was growing beautifully tired, her body finally ready to rest without the urgency of searching that had kept her restless for so long. The flower in her hair pulsed gently, like a sleepy heartbeat, and she understood that it was time to let go of the need to stay awake, to remain vigilant, to keep looking for something that had finally been found. "Will you still visit me in dreams?" she asked Sam as they reached the edge of the park, where the warm lights of the city beckoned beyond the trees. "Every night," he promised, squeezing her hand gently. "But now our dreams can be about the life we're going to build together, about all the beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary moments that are waiting for us in the morning light." Maya smiled, feeling her eyelids growing heavy with the sweet exhaustion that comes after a perfect day, after a quest completed, after a heart finally finding its home. The last thing she remembered was the sound of Sam's voice, gentle and loving, wishing her sweet dreams as the world around them began to fade into the soft, welcoming darkness of peaceful sleep. And now, dear dreamer, as Maya and Sam's story finds its gentle conclusion in the warm evening light, it's time for your own journey into the peaceful realm of sleep to begin. Let their story settle into your heart like a lullaby, like a gentle blessing that follows you into the soft darkness where all beautiful dreams are born. Feel yourself drifting now, just as Maya drifted into that final, perfect sleep, knowing that she no longer needed to search or worry or wonder. You too can let go of the day's concerns, releasing them like flower petals scattered on a gentle breeze, trusting that everything you need will be waiting for you when you wake. Your body is growing heavy now, sinking deeper into the comfort of your bed, like a feather settling onto still water. Each breath carries you further from the bright, busy world of waking thoughts and closer to the serene landscape of dreams, where anything is possible and love stories unfold in languages older than words. The magic of Maya and Sam's connection lives in your dreams now, too. A reminder that the most beautiful things in life often come to us when we're brave enough to believe in wonder, patient enough to trust in perfect timing, and wise enough to recognize love when it finds us across impossible distances. Let your mind grow quiet like a library after closing time, peaceful and still, and full of beautiful stories waiting to be discovered. Let your heart grow light like a bird, preparing to take flight, ready to soar through landscapes made of starlight and possibility. You are safe in this moment, protected by the same gentle magic that brought two dreamers together across the vast ocean of sleep. You are loved, you are cherished, you are exactly where you belong, drifting now on currents of peace and contentment that carry you toward shores of perfect rest. Sleep now, beautiful dreamer. Sleep and dream of floating gardens and impossible libraries of music that can be seen and flowers that sing lullabies, of love that transcends all boundaries and magic that makes everything possible. Sleep and let your own heart write love stories in the gentle darkness, knowing that the most beautiful dreams are always just beginning. You are light, you are peace, you are safely held in the arms of the sweetest sleep, where Maya and Sam's story continues in the whispered promises of your own dreaming heart, and where love always finds a way to bloom in gardens made of starlight and hope. Sleep now, sleep and dream. Sleep and rest in the gentle certainty that all beautiful things are possible, and that your own perfect dreams are waiting just beyond the soft horizon of consciousness, ready to welcome you home.